I had just moved into a small house in my town after years of living in an apartment. It wasn't a huge place, but it was mine, and I was excited to finally have some space to myself. The furniture was minimal, just a couch, a small TV stand, and a mini TV. But I knew I wanted a bigger TV for the living room. It was a rental, and I didn't have a ton of money, so I went to Craigslist to see if I could find something cheap. I scrolled through the listings and found a large flat-screen TV that was in my price range. It was an older model, but it seemed to fit what I was looking for. I shot an email to the seller, Mitch, asking if it was still available. His response came the next morning. Mitch was oddly enthusiastic in his email. He seemed overly excited to sell a TV. He said he was free the next evening at 6:30, and he included his address along with a Google Calendar invite that simply read, Craigslist TV. It was strange, but I figured he was just an older guy, and maybe this was his way of doing things. The next day, I finished work and drove over to Mitch's house. The sun had already set by the time I arrived, and all the lights inside his house were on. I double-checked my phone to make sure I had the right address, then walked up to the front door. To my surprise, the door was partially open. There was no screen door, just one main door, so I leaned in a little to peek inside but didn't see anyone. Feeling a little off, I rang the doorbell. Almost immediately, I heard something drop on the far side of the house. Then, everything went quiet. That noise sent a chill down my spine, but I convinced myself it was nothing. Just as I was about to leave, footsteps came from behind the door. The door opened slightly, revealing a man I didn't recognize. He was standing there, half hidden behind the door, his expression unreadable. "Need something?" he asked, his voice flat. Yeah," I stammered, trying to sound casual. "I'm here for the TV. We scheduled for 6:30 today." The man just stared at me for a moment before nodding and opening the door wider. "All right, come on in." As soon as I stepped inside, I felt something wasn't right. This wasn't the warm, friendly guy I'd expected. Mitch looked nothing like his photos or emails. He was a large, grumpy, middle-aged man, not the elderly, cheerful person I'd imagined. He didn't seem thrilled to have me there. "Yeah, this looks good," I said, trying to rush things along. "I'll take it." I handed him the cash, but instead of taking the money and letting me leave, Mitch grabbed me by the shoulder and shoved me back toward the door. "Leave," he barked, his voice suddenly harsh. Confused, I tried to protest, but he pushed harder, practically throwing me out of the house. The door slammed shut behind me before I could even react. I stood there for a moment, stunned. What had just happened? I quickly walked back to my car, feeling uneasy, but trying to shake it off. As I started the engine and pulled away, I couldn't stop thinking about the way Mitch had acted. Something about it didn't sit right with me, and I wasn't sure if I'd just narrowly escaped some kind of scam or something worse. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to get the strange encounter out of my head. I thought about calling the police, but I had no proof that Mitch had done anything illegal. The whole thing just felt off, but I didn't know how to explain it. A week later, I checked my phone and saw a news story that chilled me to the bone. A local man, Mitch, had been arrested for multiple counts of assault and battery. He had been running a Craigslist scam, luring in people to buy items only to rob them or worse. The police had been investigating him for months, and it turns out that I had been one of his near victims. The most chilling part? The house he lived in had been vacant for years, and the previous owners had mysteriously disappeared. Mitch had somehow taken over the property, squatting there for years without anyone noticing. The article didn't give many details, but the whole thing sent shivers down my spine. I couldn't help but wonder how close I had come to being his next victim. I never went back to Craigslist after that. I didn't trust it anymore, and I made sure to be extra cautious with anything involving strangers. Sometimes I still think about that night and wonder what might have happened if I hadn't left when I did. The fact that Mitch had been so brazen about trying to force me out only made me realize how dangerous some situations can be when you least expect it. From that day on, I learned to trust my instincts. And more than anything, I learned not to ignore the warning signs. no matter how small they might seem.